Yo, what's up, fellas? It's your boy Sweat, and today I'm going to be bringing you guys the top 5 Destiny raid bosses. This is a list coming from both Destiny 1 and 2. All of your raids: Vault of Glass, Crota's End, King's Fall, Wrath of the Machine, the Leviathan, Eater of Worlds, Spire of Stars, and Last Wish. Before we get into the list, all I ask is if you guys enjoy these types of videos and you want to see another one, leave a like on the video. This lets me know that you guys want to see more types of videos like these. Also, let me know down in the comments below what your guys' top 5 list for all-time Destiny bosses is. Anyways, let's get into it. Starting out at the crispy number 5 spot, we have the Templar. The Templar is the very first boss encounter that players encountered in the Vault of Glass raid, which was Bungie's very first raid that they released in Destiny 1 way back on September 16th, 2014. I think this boss left a very good first impression on players trying out Bungie's new raid series in their brand new game Destiny at the time. So way back in 2014, for those who do not remember, Destiny had an entirely different light leveling system at the time. I think it put players at more of a disadvantage than it does for raids nowadays. And since this was the very first raid, a lot of players went in under leveled because they really didn't know what to expect at the time. Getting to the main point, that this boss is still great today because it's one of the only bosses that moves around basically the entire arena. He is able to get a line of sight on your entire team almost anywhere. There are some safe spots, but it also has another mechanic that you have to be destroying oracles around the map, otherwise it will mark your team and have a chance at wiping you. And especially since the Templar isn't even the final boss of the raid, he's literally the first boss that Destiny created, I definitely think it deserves the number 5 spot. Coming in at the crispy number 4 spot, we have Crota. Crota's End was Destiny's second raid and released immediately alongside the launch of the Dark Below DLC on January 21st, 2015. Over the next couple of years, Crota was getting beaten up pretty heavily. Players found the pull the plug cheese, in which Crota would stay vulnerable infinitely and could be taken down in seconds. Another player, Glad, took down Crota solo using a Rock Band drum kit, and the full raid speedrun completion time worked its way down to 6 minutes and 24 seconds, which is the fastest raid time completion of any raid in Destiny. Also, link in the description if you know what I'm saying. I think the reason that this raid was and still is a favorite to many people is the fact that the raid could be soloed relatively easily with some practice. Also, the fact that Crota remains to be the only raid boss that can only be defeated with a relic. I guess you could count his father Oryx too if you wanted, but his health draining does not specifically involve a relic. Alright, coming in at the number 3 spot, we have Golgoroth. Golgoroth is a part of the King's Fall raid, which released on September 18th in 2015, just 3 days after the release of the DLC expansion, The Taken King. Until the majority of players had acquired the Black Spindle back in Destiny 1, this boss fight was actually extremely difficult. It was difficult because of all the things you had to juggle inside this enclosed space, which actually wasn't that big. Although there were a couple of safe spots in the back to play passive and clear out the ads before you started doing boss TPS, if you poked out at the wrong place at the wrong time, he can melt you very, very fast no matter what light level you're at. And if your team manages to rack up 6 deaths, the total will wipe your entire team, causing you to start the fight all over again. The reason I think this fight is very unique is because of the way you do damage. You shoot these orbs off the ceiling, which drop a pool that allows you to shoot his chest, doing massive damage if a player has taken the gaze. And the way you take the gaze is shooting his big weak spot in the back. Only one player can take the gaze at a time, allowing you to take it for just a few seconds. If you want to continue to do damage, you'll have to continue to take down another orb very quickly and have another player take his gaze. You are not required to take his gaze more than once per round unless you are doing the challenge mode. But obviously, the more times you take the gaze, the more opportunity you have to do DPS to the boss. But obviously that decision is up to your team. That's why I put this in the number 3 spot, is because this fight is very hectic, very unique compared to a lot of other fights where it involves plate mechanics and stuff like that. You have a lot of opportunity to pick and choose what you want to do to take down the boss. Coming in at number 2, we have Riven. Riven is the final boss to the Last Wish raid, which is Destiny's most recent raid as of when this video is being made. It released on September 14th, 2018, just 10 days after the DLC's release. The theory behind this boss fight is something that players have been asking for a very long time. People have been asking for a boss fight in which the full raid team of 6 splits into 2 sections and has to work on their own before coming back together and damaging the boss. Although there is a cheese that lets you go around all the mechanics that are developed there, I still think that this is one of the coolest boss fights that Destiny has ever created. Mostly because if you do it the intended way, your first playthrough is going to be a lot of fun, especially if you're just having some fun playing with some friends. I know I keep reiterating this a lot, but I think the coordination aspect to these boss fights is very, very important. It makes them more challenging and fun. This fight is no exception, in which players have to make sure they're getting the callouts between themselves flawlessly, because one screw up can very, very easily lead to a team wipe and starting the fight all over again. The one thing I really want to applaud Bungie for in this raid is the use of raid banners, which give you full ammo and super when you place and rally them before the start of a boss fight. Without the raid banners, I think many players would have given up on Riven because of how crucial it is to have full ammo on this fight, especially if you are underleveled. Having ammo stints back from Destiny 1 could have been another potential solution to this ammo issue, but what Bungie implemented for this raid was a lot better than stints in my opinion. If there's one thing I could change about this boss fight, I would definitely change the amount of damage that you're able to do to Riven without shooting her scabs, aka just shooting her in the mouth during the stun phase. Referring to the cheese that I mentioned earlier, it is possible during the stun phase in which players just stack damage buffs and spray cluster rockets into her mouth, avoiding all the mechanics that you're intended to do. You are not required to fall once or shoot any of the scabs, or keep track of any of the eye callouts throughout the entire fight. The fact that this is cheesable that hard is a little silly in my opinion. If Bungie reduced the amount of damage that you could do to her during the stun phase, it would require players to actually do the intended mechanics, keeping track of the eyeballs, getting the stuns, and falling down and getting the majority of the damage from the scabs instead. Alright, coming in at a bonus slot, I put the Siege Engine. Obviously, I couldn't put this in the top 5 because it is not a boss, so I decided to throw in a bonus slot. I really feel like this encounter deserves some recognition. It is definitely my favorite non-boss encounter in all of Destiny. The part carrying is definitely the best part about this encounter. Having to push forward through waves and waves of ads while doing this makes it super fun, and you're not able to sit stationary and cheese your way through it either, because this encounter is timed, and if time runs out before you repair the Siege Engine, you wipe. During this encounter, players often have to make on-the-fly callouts to adjust to deaths and other things that are thrown your way during this fight. You can very easily die to ships that deploy more enemies and the captains that drop along with them. The cool part about this encounter is it is possible from anywhere from the full 6 fireteam members to doing it solo. Solo is only possible in hard mode. Obviously the difficulty will scale the less and less people that you have doing this, but it is a great challenge and I would definitely recommend. Alright guys, and coming in at the number 1 spot we have Aksis. Aksis is the final boss of Destiny 1's final raid, Wrath of the Machine, which released on September 23rd, 2016. The reason why I believe this boss was so popular among all of the Destiny community is because of the pace of the fight. From the time this fight begins, it is non-stop action between clearing waves of shanks and other ads, getting the servitors down and dividing the empowerments up across the map between your team. On top of that, you need to juggle being able to do enough damage to complete the boss within the 4 waves. Obviously being above the light level of the raid makes it a lot easier, but at the time that this came out, this was definitely a big challenge for players. Also adding into the equation that Siva is the hardest enemy race to fight. One other thing that contributed to the widespread success of this boss was the world's first solo completion by Scardro. This solo completion sparked a wave of challenges for the Destiny challenge community, with players trying to complete Aksis in the fewest amount of teleports possible, both solo and in fire teams. It was eventually worked down to a 1 teleport kill in fire teams at least, and it is the current meta for speedruns now. Even though Aksis doesn't pose as a big threat himself, everything else around him is very well rounded out in this boss fight, which is why I think this deserves the #1 spot. That's it for this top 5, guys. I hope you enjoyed. If you are new, make sure you click subscribe and leave a comment letting me know what you guys want to see in the next one. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one. Peace.